各位长官、贵宾以及在线上收看直播的朋友。
Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. Welcome back to the 2021 Taipei Food Show, International Forum on Innovative Trends in the Food Industry. I'm your MC today, Angela Liu. In the morning, the speakers discussed the international trends in the food industry, nutritional alternative technologies, and potential innovations in packaging materials. During the afternoon session, we will invite 4 industry representatives to share about how new paradigm shifts in agriculture and food production will affect the future of the food industry. In the afternoon, Professor Chang from the Department of Agriculture Economics, National Taiwan University, will now talk about agriculture of the future, innovative trends in the agriculture and food industry. I would like to thank the organizer for organizing such an important forum to help all the participants exchange ideas and expertise. In the next 25 minutes, I will talk about some of my observations and ideas about the future of agriculture, particularly focusing on innovative trends in the food production industry. My presentation in the afternoon can be divided into 2 parts. I will talk about the current and the hottest topics. For example, smart agriculture and circular agriculture. I believe these 2 are the most important and topical issues under discussion today. And I will also talk about some future trends. For example, carbon neutrality, big data, smart marketing, interdisciplinary industry, vertical integration. I will also be discussing some case studies, particularly regarding smart agriculture and circular agriculture. However, I will take a step beyond that to focus a bit more on the future trends. I believe it's only by exploring the future directions of these trends that can we gain more insights into these designated topics. And this is also by the request of the organizer. Let's first discuss what exactly is smart agriculture. We are all very familiar with the application of a wide range of ICT technologies in agricultural production or farm management, agricultural produce transportation, distribution, and marketing. And these are some of the hottest topics over the years, in the past years. In a conference, OECD conference held in Korea back in 2019, it is mentioned that today, the hottest agricultural topics under discussion are really about how to apply ICT to improve the life or livelihood and the development of rural communities. That was a 2-day conference back in 2019. The very first day was focused on the presentations by different speakers, and the second day was dedicated to giving participants the opportunity to share what kind of ICT technologies are being used in rural areas in their respective countries. I was invited to that conference, and I shared with the international participants how Taiwan is deploying and applying ICTs to agricultural production and farm management. I would like to also mention some of the buzzwords that we very often hear about. Agricultural produce traceability system is one of them. Many of you are very familiar with this concept. The traceability system enables the consolidation of the production, the information related to the entire production process, going from the source all the way to the end consumers. A QR code is then printed on the product's packaging to allow consumers to scan with their own smartphone in order to bring up the information regarding the entire production process of the food item. This also includes information regarding the producer, the grower, and the input materials used to produce the food item. And the Council of Agriculture has been promoting the use of this QR code enabled traceability system for quite a few years. Agricultural automation is also a very hot topic. Various technologies related to the automation process are actually quite mature to date. For example, automated cultivation system of the butterfly orchids has been used in Taiwan for a very long time. It is enabled by the use of ICT technologies in the field and thereby optimizing the farm management and monitoring. In essence, the growth and development of the butterfly orchids can be monitored and can be reported to the manager in a real-time manner. And also on the right-hand side, we have the AI-enabled mushroom grading and sorting system. We use AI-enabled scanning system and apply that to mushroom grading and sorting. As you can see, that during the growing process, the different growth processes result in mushrooms of different sizes, and they result in different selling, different price points for the different sizes of mushrooms. Therefore, AI-enabled mushroom grading system can be quite useful in that regard. And also, agricultural drones is also a very topical issue recently. These drones have been deployed and used very extensively in some foreign countries. However, there is still a very long way to go in Taiwan. It is combined with a monitoring system to enable the growers to monitor the growth of fruit trees and the plants in the field. It also can be connected with sensors that control the spraying of pesticides and insecticide. And also, we have the cold chain system, which has gained increasing importance over the years. It is very important to make sure that during the transportation and shipping process, that the temperatures are being kept at an optimal level in the cold chain system. The concept itself is quite straightforward. However, the system technologies have not quite matured until the recent years. So here on the right-hand side, we have an example of a Taiwanese company dedicated to the development of cold chain systems. This company used to focus on just the regular logistics supply chain system, but it has upgraded its plans and have been working with different farms across Taiwan to optimize its cold chain systems. They have been expanded to different areas across the island. So it is a good example that illustrates the increasing importance of the cold chain system. So I have given you a few key technologies that enable smart agriculture. The next concept I would like to emphasize is the increasing importance of circular agriculture, which is a very important aspect of agricultural development in Taiwan by the Council of Agriculture. And this concept has been deployed in across various industries, including the fishing industry, farming, husbandry, forestry, just to name a few. On the left-hand side, we have an example of using recycled wood materials to create an environmentally friendly stereo system. So this is a very classic example of how what seems to be waste in our daily life can be recycled and turned into valuable products. On the right-hand side, we have the aquaponics, which combines a water tank with the function to raise fish and a aquaponics system floating on top for the growing of vegetables. And another example is the husbandry industry, particularly pig farms. a lot of waste can be generated. For example, sludge and animal waste are generated during the husbandry operations. Therefore, it is very important to come up with ways to recycle and treat the sludge and to turn it into reusable resources. Moreover, the waste from, for example, the droppings from the pigs could then be turned into biomass, which is then in turn turned into bioenergy. Cow farming could potentially generate a lot of wastewater. Therefore, the wastewater can be recycled to be directed into the irrigation system for growing hay. So the forestry experimental stations across Taiwan have been working on developing this technology. So the wastewater from the nearby farms for raising cows can be then directed to the field for growing hay, and hay is then made into silage. Silage is silage, which is then turned into animal feeds. In turn, can be used again to feed the cow, which creates a complete circular economy cycle. When it comes to the promotion of smart circular agriculture, we must take into consideration the farmers' needs. I believe that this lies at the core of the future development of the circular agriculture technologies. It comes down to the farmers' real needs. Over the past 4 years, the Council of Agriculture have been distributing different grants and subsidies for promoting smart technologies to subsidize companies that are developing smart agricultural technologies. But these technologies would have to be transferred to the industry for the farmers to actually use in their daily practice, for them to be cost effective. Therefore, technological transfer lies at the core of the success of the agricultural technology development. For me, I believe it is very important to have the benefit and cost analysis prior to the start of the development project. We need to look at the expected benefits and the potential costs of developing such a technology. The government is now providing subsidies and grants for companies to develop related smart technologies so that these companies could be bold and are encouraged to go ahead with their R&D projects. However, will no longer be economically viable once these grants are no longer available. Therefore, we need to emphasize the importance of creating value-added technologies and conduct benefit versus cost analysis ahead of time. We need to look into the actual added benefits and costs when developing circular economy in the agricultural sector. When you're able to answer that question and conduct the analysis, then the consumers will feel the benefits. They will be more than willing to purchase such products. So the economic benefit analyses are still lacking in the agricultural sector. And that is a very important focus of my research. I majored in economics, therefore, I often emphasize the importance of analyzing the economic benefits of the R&D projects, especially in the agricultural sector. And in the past, Taiwan often follows the footsteps of other foreign companies that have already developed mature technologies that can be readily transferred to Taiwan. Take unmanned airborne vehicles, for example. Those drones developed by Western countries are more suitable to be deployed on large farms. However, the farms in Taiwan are usually a lot smaller than their counterparts in other countries. Therefore, these drones developed in America or Australia may not be so suitable for the Taiwanese situation, considering the small sizes of the farms here. So we really need to look at the farmers' needs and the needs of the local farming communities in order to generate the optimal and to maximize benefits for the farmers.
The next thing I'd like to cover is an issue that you hear about a lot in other industries, but in the field of agriculture, very few people think about. That is carbon neutrality. I'm sure many of you have already heard the term carbon neutrality. This was started from the EU, and now in the US, they're hoping that companies will also start looking at carbon neutrality. And we see many companies have been impacted by this. What is carbon neutrality actually talking about? Basically, it is talking about the calculation of the total amount of greenhouse gas emissions produced directly or indirectly by companies, groups, or individuals within a certain period of time. So today, companies are hoping to move towards zero emissions. The tricky part is the EU and the United States has already tried to implement carbon neutrality in its companies. I think Tesla is a very good case in point. It is a company that is ahead of the curve in carbon neutrality. And companies such as Google, Amazon, they're also looking at carbon neutrality. The problem is when we're looking at carbon neutrality, how does agriculture fit in? I think for other sectors, there's been a lot of talk. However, very little light has been shone on agriculture. Another issue that's very much in hot debate is thick data. What is thick data? Basically, thick data is the result of the collaboration between data scientists and anthropologists working together to make sense of large amounts of data, revealing emotions, stories, and meanings. Many people have heard of big data. What's the relationship between thick data and big data? Well, I think simply put, big data is the quantitative use of data, and thick data is the more qualitative use of data. A lot of insights that come from mass interviews, that's considered thick data. And in the last 5, 6 years, people have been focusing more on big data. But now people are realizing big data is very clinical, it lacks human warmth. This is why we need to pay more attention to thick data, where we look at insights from the depth of stories. I will give you some examples in a while. And in addition to quantity of data, big data will allow us to look at the quality of the data. Taiwan's Council of Agriculture has actually done a lot in the area of big data and thick data. This is not an open endorsement. Rather, I have really seen what the government has tried to do in the area of big data and thick data. If you look at the right side, that counts for work in the area of big data. This has to do with open API establishment, and it requires a lot of data input. What's often overlooked is the other side of the equation, which is thick data. Education of farmers, that is considered thick data. So in the government's on the Government C Council of Agriculture platform, you will be able to find both big and thick data. Here is an example I want to share with you. This is a visual storytelling tool that helps farmers make short films and tell their own stories. So this is an easy way for farmers to demonstrate what they're doing. So you can go onto this platform and very easily tell your own story and promote your agricultural products. As I mentioned, you can make videos. You can also have DMs. And it's very, very beautiful to look at. And this allows statistics to also have stories attached to them. In addition to this type of tool, you can also establish a database. This is part of thick data, where you look at ways in which to curb certain pest problems. So for farmers, when they need to solve certain issues, they can use this as a very important window. They may have some problems with production and they need an answer. And what I really like is this example. This is a virtual museum of agriculture. For me, this is more interesting than a soap opera because you will be able to read stories about young farmers as well as all sorts of knowledge relating to agricultural science. This is a large virtual museum. So this is another example of what I call thick data. And this is all very readily available online. I encourage you to take a look. Furthermore, many companies, two of the companies that are going to come after me, they are doing a lot in the area of intelligent marketing, where they try and introduce added value to agricultural products. They may get a celebrity to endorse their products. And here is an example of a commercial shot by an agricultural co-op in Xizhi. And you will see that the story is very touching. It is talking about how eggs can tie into intergenerational uh, feeling and affection. So if you're interested, make sure you look at these examples. After I saw this commercial, I have to say that I wanted to visit the Shizi Agricultural Co-op to buy eggs from them. Another example I can cite is that of cross-industry collaboration. Many of you have heard of the collaboration between Amazon and Whole Foods in the United States. And in Taiwan, Mega International Commercial Bank and PX Pay is a similar example. It may be hard to put these two companies together, but we know that PX Pay has a huge membership scheme, and Mega International Commercial Bank will offer financial services. So this is a good example of cross-industry collaboration. We also know that we are ushering in the age of vertical integration, and upstream, midstream, downstream companies are integrating. So you can see that 7-Eleven now also has its own logistic systems. So sometimes your friends from before can end up being an enemy that you're competing with. So this is part of the challenge of the age of vertical integration. Lastly, I'd like to share with you my conclusions. I think the most important when it comes to agriculture is to sell at a higher price point or to reduce costs. It's very important in that regard to understand the consumer as well as market segmentation. Furthermore, the trend of carbon neutrality might create more business opportunities, but we're talking about a completely new, uncharted field. And I also described the difference between thick data and big data. I believe thick data can help us increase the added value of agricultural products. Lastly, I really believe we need to nurture interdisciplinary cross-industry talents. Thank you. We want to thank Professor Zhang for shedding light on the future trends of agricultural technology. The internet has allowed farming methods to transform. We heard about intelligent farming. How do we utilize intelligent farming so that we can cut down on manpower but also enhance the quality and quantity of agricultural produce? We are very pleased to have as our next speaker General Manager Chiu from K.K.ORCHARD to tell us a little bit more about what they are doing. Professor Chang, Vice General Manager Huang, Taitra, representatives, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. I also want to say hello to all of our online friends. My name is Jacky Chiu, and I'm so happy that I was introduced as a sweet potato farmer. That's actually my favorite title. Very few people actually will describe themselves as a farmer, but this is something that I take great pride in. And when we talk about farming, as Professor Chang said in the last presentation, there are many new trends. If we look at Taiwan's past, we think of farmers as being very hardworking. They have to be in the fields all day long. So that is what people generally think of when they think of agriculture in Taiwan. And actually, 14 years ago, when I first came back to Taiwan, that was actually the picture of agriculture in my head. And the bottleneck that I encountered at the time was if I'm looking 30 years in the future, it's very important for agriculture to have some breakthroughs. So at K.K. Orchards, we were trying to think of new tools, new partners that we could work with. And recently, we've discovered that through innovation, that there have been many success stories. Of course, we don't know if the outcome is going to be all success, but at least at present, we've had some very, very good results. So when we look at supply chain in agriculture, we need to think about smart agriculture. However, what is smart agriculture? I think ultimately, smart agriculture needs to be bring more people on board. And last week, I was presenting to APEC about the digital innovation of my company, K.K.ORCHARD's sweet potato supply chain. This is a very, very large topic. So I would like to share with you my experience in part of this supply chain. What I specialized in university was in business administration, and my goal after joining K.K. Orchards was to learn as quickly as possible. So I first had to understand agricultural accreditation. I worked together with the Council of Agriculture in this regard, and through that experience, I realized for many farmers, if you talk to many farmers, you'll realize there are 100 ways of planting sweet potato. However, with so many diverse methods, what is the best way if you're hoping to double your produce? So what I spent a lot of time on was to learn how to standardize a lot of what we were doing in order to optimize results. Today, when you go to a convenience store, it's very easy for you to buy some sweet potato and eat it as a snack. This did not come easily because very often agriculture is stuck when it comes to mass production. So in the first few years of my career, I kept trying to think of ways in which we could integrate production and sales. I can cite a simple example. You can see that in this room, there are many, many tables. They are lined up very nicely. But I remember when I first started out, we had the problem of identifying who was responsible for which crop. So often I was unable to see actual order in farming. So when I started to attend classes on agricultural technology, we had to look at how we take 200 hectares of farmland and optimize its use. And right now, we've grown to a scale of 16 Da'an parks. This is a park in Taipei. So if you are not able to standardize, you will not be able to optimize your production. However, once you scale up, it becomes very, very challenging when you're trying to communicate something. So the next step is to systematize. Only through systematic design will you be able to have seamless cooperation.
农业可以
The agriculture sector offers jobs for people of all ages, including those in their early 20s all the way to those in their late 80s. So we have to create a clear and easy channel for communication. So these are all the very important points or pain points we need to address when we seek to scale up. And that would be the starting point of my presentation today. My company started out as a retailer of potatoes, sweet potatoes in particular. We started out as having a retail shop front selling agricultural produce, particularly focusing on locally grown sweet potatoes. Later, we developed our own brands, the K.K.ORCHARD in 2020. We set up our own new factory, the K.K.ORCHARD headquarters. I will give you a little bit more details here in a minute. Our target is to become the best partner of product development, particularly in the area of sweet potatoes. Maybe I should give you an example. In the past, there are unspoken rules. For example, if you supply to one channel, you're not allowed to dabble in other channels. You have to stay loyal to certain suppliers or partners. But today, the situation has changed. We need to work with a wider range of customers. We even need to help them develop new innovative products. In the morning, one speaker talked about vegetarian meat. He said that as long as you can name a particular kind of meat, we have a vegetarian version of that. And by the same token, as long as you can name a form of the food preparation method, we have the product for you. We have steamed, cooked, boiled, fried, and pan-fried, and all sorts of sweet potato products available to our consumers. And they are also exported to various countries around the world, and sweet potatoes can be incorporated with all aspects of our everyday life. I think for us, it's very important to connect with our end users by connecting with our partners to help each other succeed. So, in terms of the entire production process, it could be very, very time-consuming. From farm to table, it usually takes about 16 months. So in the age of the pandemic, you would need to decide whether I'm going to grow or sow the seeds based on the potential projected demand 16 months down the road. So it is not really just about putting the seeds in the soil and harvest the sweet potatoes. It all starts from having healthy seeds, and I think it also applies to the chicken farming or the pig farming industry. You have to have young little chicks in order to rear healthy chickens. So we started with growing healthy sprouts, cultivating healthy seeds, and through stem cultivation, species preservation, plug tray plantation, and cultivation at high elevation. In addition to greenhouse cultivation, we have received very helpful assistance and guidance from the Council of Agriculture in this exploration phase of our company's business. Now our products are available all over the island. You could go to a street vendor, a a fried chicken stand on the street side. From these stands to large-scale restaurants, you will see our sweet potatoes being offered in the form of fried sweet potatoes or steamed sweet potatoes, just to name a few. However, we do face a number of challenges. This is mainly due to the effect of the climate change. For example, last year, the plum rain hit us a month earlier than expected. The sweet potatoes were all soaking in water in the field. We had to make a decision whether to abandon them or to harvest them immediately. A lot of people talking about the increasingly unstable weather that is causing fluctuations in profits. Our shareholders often ask us that we need to mitigate the risks of the fluctuating weather patterns. The effects of the climate change are here to stay. We just need to come up with ways to mitigate and manage these risks. And another challenge is the aging population. Normally, the average age of a Taiwanese farmer is 64 years old, and the speaker in the morning mentioned that the average age is probably higher. It's probably in their 70s. So a lot of farmers that we work with are in fact in their 70s. And as you can see, that those working in the factories, developing technologies, managing the factories are actually younger, from the younger population. However, the people working in the fields are people in their 70s. And in the final handling, retail packaging, we also have younger female workers handling that phase of the production process. So the age distribution is very, very imbalanced. And there's also the decrease of cultivated land. And on the average, each farmer only has 0.4 hectare of land that they can use to cultivate plants. The 0.4 hectare is not much larger than this meeting room. So you need to be able to customize whether you go big or you have to go home. Can you have the best of the two worlds? Can you have a small plot of land and still be able to customize your agricultural produce? These are the challenges facing the farmers in Taiwan today. So we talked about the challenges with regard to the production and the supply chain. What about the challenges regarding the digitization of the agricultural supply chain? I have always been an early adopter of technologies in agriculture. At the time when we first started out, we gave PDAs to our farmers. And they turned it down. They didn't know how to use the PDAs. They didn't know how it could help them. They said, we're already overwhelmed with the harvest season. We do not have time to use these devices. And we encourage them, well, just go ahead and use it. In a few months, you will be able to learn the ropes. However, the younger generation of farmers may find it acceptable to switch to new technologies. However, the older generations find it very daunting and challenging to combine or integrate technologies in their daily farming practices. So that is one big challenge. And there's also the environmental conditions, the high infrastructure set up costs. So how do we share the cost and share the risks associated with the development of the infrastructure? So how much money to invest? Who should invest? In terms of the infrastructure setup, a simple system may cost 700 to 800,000 NT dollars. You will need to update it from time to time. You will need to train people to learn how to use it properly. So that also, this in turn decreases the farmers' willingness to adopt new technologies. What if we developed a system that we can all share, that the farmers could use collaboratively? That's probably another solution, and that's the direction that we took when we first started out. So I already talked about the challenges we faced in the early years of our business development. As you could see, in the early days, you have this production process as illustrated on the left-hand side. Everything was pretty much done manually. You could see how people were working hard wearing big sun hats, working tirelessly in the farms. And In fact, carrots are still being harvested this way, onions as well in Taiwan. It's very labor intensive and very, very tiring. And not to mention that there is a lack of a labor force that's becoming increasingly serious in Taiwan. Today, we're using automatic drones to monitor the situation in the fields and to spray fertilizers and pesticides. This is, in fact, a prevention better than to cure approach. What that means that when we monitor the fields, the drones are able to make quick turns to cover all the corners of the fields so that we could take preventive measures, thereby reducing the use of pesticide at the end. So these drones will then send information back to the system. For example, now I could fire up my laptop, and then I would be able to monitor the 2,000 plus plots that we work with, farmers that we work with. We would be able to look at the defective rates. We would be able to follow the growth curves of the sweet potatoes. Not only that, we are able to get real-time feedback from the production lines, a computer automated sorting system, and we have also set up this sort of gates with sensors in order to pick up data whenever we need it in a real-time manner. Sometimes we collect data, but the data does not help us gain a better picture of what is going on. Therefore, we need to first standardize and then systemize and then deploy such technologies. So how do we carry out the various projects? The external information here on the left-hand side includes information from our customers, material suppliers, raw material suppliers, and farmers, to name a few. So we have all these needs so we can plan our production. What this means is that we no longer have to worry about over or under producing sweet potatoes because we're able to gain clear information on the projected needs of the sweet potatoes, at what time in the year, how much quantity of sweet potatoes are to be delivered to the customers. So we will be able to gather all these different types of data. So sometimes a customer would come to me and say, I'm going to place an order for 100,000 boxes of sweet potatoes. Then I will get back to him by saying that, oh, during the pandemic, do you think you're going to be able to sell more? Or do you want to scale back? Maybe you want to put in an order for 80,000. Maybe I would encourage him. I would say maybe you could wait a little bit and not place an order of such a large quantity at once. So we would try to gather all the different types of information in order to help ourselves and our customers make the best decisions. For example, sometimes we would need to harvest sweet potatoes this year. However, for example, in May this year, Taiwan went into a lockdown because of the outbreaks of the COVID-19. We have already placed our order to the farmers. The farmers were already trying to deliver the harvest. However, the demand went down over the island because of the lockdown, so we had to look for other channels to sell the surplus of sweet potatoes. However, this just further highlights the importance of planned production. Here, the bar chart shows you the increase of our contracted farmers' farming area. As you can see over the years, the area has been increasing with the increased number of farmers who we work with, who we purchase our sweet potatoes from. We have all heard of the 80-20 rule. During the pandemic, we often think about how to apply this rule to minimize our loss. So it's important to have more transparency in the supply chain. We have the market end and ourselves, as well as the supplier and the farmers and the consumers. We would see that, for example, the traditional channels are not really having a great sale, are not really having great sales numbers. So maybe we could switch to the online sales channels. For example, in Europe, when they think of sweet potatoes, they prefer the purple, orange, and the light yellow sweet potato fries instead of a monochrome fries. So in Taiwan, we eat it as a staple food. However, in the European Union, Europeans tend to view sweet potato fries as a source of vegetables. So it's just a different approach. We also need to look at carbon neutrality and ways to reduce our carbon emissions and environmental footprint. I think it comes down to whether you would be able to recycle the waste to create a circular recycling process. So a lot of convenience stores are offering leftover food at a reduced price, or food items that are about to expire at a discounted price. So I think it's the same idea. The waste coming from the cow farms and the animal farms could then be reused as fertilizers for the sweet potato farms, and the sweet potatoes leaves and stems could then be used to be turned into animal feeds. So in the market, they're already marketing cow milk. Milk that come from cows that are raised on sweet potato leaves or sweet potatoes, and they have garnered much attention. And
the SDGs were mentioned quite a few times today. So many people will be asking a question: why are we still doing this on top of our regular business? This is because we hope to attract more talent. We hope that not just farmers, generations of farmers are interested in agriculture. If you are interested in any part of SDG, we welcome you to join us in the supply chain. And I want to also add that very often agriculture doesn't allow for different types of professionals. Today, if you are a farmer, you're used to being a jack of all trades. So we need to create a job market where if you don't know how to do one thing, we'll teach you. If you don't have a certain equipment, we can help you find it, so that more and more diverse professionals can join us. Another point I want to end on is we need to take care of our supply chain. We can see that for sweet potatoes, this industry is one where we have a association. However, very often competitors are all in the same association. So why should I open up my intelligence and share it with you? How do we really co-prosper? I can cite an example. If you go to Singapore and you want to buy sweet potato from a convenience store, all you will see is sweet potato from the United States, or sweet potato from Indonesia, or sweet potato from Taiwan. That's all you will see, and you can make your decision based on the price. So we have to know that it's important that we work together so that we co-prosper, that we don't fight each other. So we need to integrate our supply chain and also think of ways in which you can process food to expand the market. And lastly, I want to emphasize the importance of maximizing resource utilization. Today, I've talked about the importance of recycling waste so that there is a circular economy. So we are also in Taiwan looking at reducing carbon emissions. But very often, this is not a profitable endeavor. Even if you are lowering carbon emissions, it's not going to allow you to sell your sweet potato for a higher price. So it's important for us to promote what we're doing. Everybody's talking about the importance of a circular economy, of carbon neutrality, but how do we translate that into profitability? I think this is a key question. In conclusion, I would like to express my hope that the Taipei Food Forum is able to answer many of the questions so that our agriculture can be more sustainable. Thank you very much for that very informative presentation. And we can see that through digital technology, K.K.ORCHARD has managed to leapfrog into the next century. The next speaker is going to look at issues relating to food safety, labor force, and low birth rate. These are all new phenomena in our day and age. How is it going to impact the food sector? Our speaker comes from the Great Wall Group. This is a very important food manufacturer in Taiwan. They have a very diverse array of products. So it gives me pleasure to invite Vice President Huang from the Food Business Group at the Great Wall Group to address us. Hello, everybody. If you've been sitting here since the morning, you should know that we heard this morning from Professor Zheng Guangchen. He talked about some new trends in agricultural technology, and we also heard about vegetarian meat hailing from Taiwan. And then our speaker, Pierre Passelier from England, talked about their very innovative biodegradable packaging. Also, we heard from Professor Zhang Hung-Hao about how today agriculture has been completely transformed. And we also heard from the general manager of K.K.ORCHARD about what they are doing in the digital revolution. So from all of this, I think you can tell that there are actually still traditional products such as meat, regular meat in the food industry. So I want to thank Business Weekly for giving me the opportunity to talk about a very traditional food stuff, meat. I think many people have only been able to eat vegetarian meat today, so they may be craving some traditional food stuff. My group, Great Wall, is known for its feed, animal feed, its chicken, and also our cooking oil. If you say you know about our cooking oil, I can probably tell how old you are. We also have our own eggs, and we also have some food processing products. But recently, we have been in the news because of our big plant, food processing plant in Jiayi that is focused on meat products. The reason it has generated so much attention is because it is a 2.4 billion NT dollar investment. So a very, very expensive investment. Many people want to know why we have invested so heavily in a plant in Taiwan. I want to cover what is the thinking behind setting up this kind of food processing plant, what is the design idea, and share that with you. Actually, in 2013, and actually maybe even earlier than that, Great Wall Group, we ran into some problems in our operations. What were those problems? At the time, we can see food price was very, very low. I remember in 2013, there was a lunchbox that was very well known that was sold for 50 NT for a very, very low price. You can imagine if the whole lunchbox cost 50 NT dollar, that means people were only prepared to pay 9 NT dollar for the drumstick in the lunchbox. This made it very difficult for us to survive, but we couldn't hike up prices either. However, we were able to overcome this dilemma because of some food safety concerns. Starting from 2013, many food safety issues came to the public's attention. And as a result, the government had to be much stricter when it came to food safety supervision. We can see that the competent authorities started to crack down on food safety, and the media began to cover a lot of such stories. So the macro environment went through these changes. People were more aware of food safety incidents. Today, I won't tell you the name of the companies, but there was a brunch franchise in Taiwan that is very well known, where people accuse them of using eggs that were of poor quality. And the restaurateur made an excuse that they were not aware of, that they did not procure the eggs themselves, but the public couldn't accept that as an excuse. So the scenario in 2013 was more and more people were concerned with food safety. As a result, suppliers had to be careful. They couldn't just give you low price for their products, but they needed to foster a partnership with the farmers and the producers. So this laid the foundation for more benevolent collaboration. And I think that was a very important turning point for the food industry in Taiwan. As we expanded, we wanted to look at new types of plants. And we looked at a few trends before we set up this mega plant in Jiayi. We looked at the trends of food safety, labor force shortage, drop in birth rate, amongst others. And I remember we had a colleague who was running the cooking oil business, and he was complaining that they had a very low profit margin, and if you look at other industries, they continue to expand and they continue to build new companies. So we realized that we really needed to overhaul our business strategy. I talked about how food safety played into our expansion. When we saw food safety supervision becoming stricter and more stringent, people were more interested in the production process. And a result of this is smaller factories were fewer and fewer. We can see many of the small players, they lost market share. So I remember 30, 40 years ago in Taiwan, there were many OEM manufacturers. For my company, Great Wall, we will find a contractor to make a certain product. And most of the products we were selling on the market were all made by contractors. They were outsourced. However, whenever there was a food safety issue, the whole brand would be adversely impacted. So it's very important for us to have a handle on the manufacturing process, to be able to manage all of the factories diligently. I mentioned that for our partners, we are very open when it comes to communication and information sharing. We are very clear about our formulations with our partners. So for our collaborators, They understand our dedication to transparency and quality. We take on the tasks that they probably don't have resources to tackle. So we can see many small of these OEM food processing producers began to disappear while the big got bigger. So in the future, we believe that the bigger you are, the more market opportunities there are for you.
我们评检这个把
We also make every effort to ensure food safety. What kind of designs have we adopted to ensure food safety? Not just meeting the regulatory requirements, but also take a step further to ensure maximal food safety. For example, the separation of raw and cooked food production lines, the separation of waste disposal lanes. This is very important in our new plants. We actually have separate floors, each floor being really, really large in terms of its footprint to separate the cooked and raw food production lines. We, in fact, have 3 lanes in our plant. We actually, at our new plant, we have 3 different entry points or entrances, if you will. Normally, a plant would only have 1 entrance. At our plant, we have the larger gate is dedicated to for the use by trucks for the raw materials to enter and for the finished products to leave the plant. And the smaller gate is for employees to enter and leave the premise. And the third gate is for the disposal of production waste, including solid and liquid waste. So we have a dedicated separate waste disposal lanes for the garbage trucks to use and a separate gate for the waste to exit the premise. We also have a separate employee dining areas and work clothes laundry area in order to reduce cross-contamination. Their work clothes, our employees' work clothes, are sent to our own laundromat at the end of the day to be thoroughly cleaned and sterilized. And we also have upgraded our equipment and purchase the most cutting-edge, expensive equipment out there to increase production speed. Why is it so important to increase the speed? It is because that during the production process, particularly when it comes to meat products, you want to handle the meat at the shortest time, within the shortest time possible, because as the meat's temperatures rise, it is easier for them to become hotbeds for germs to grow. And there are also production lines that allow meats to stay on the production line for a long time so that the workers could manually pick out the broken bones from the chicken breast. However, it is not feasible in today's environment because it actually creates a higher temperature meat so that the germs could grow. So we try to eliminate that as well by having the most cutting-edge bone picking technologies. And we also have high ceiling manufacturing area. This increases the ventilation and airflow at the manufacturing area so that there's less condensation and more stable temperatures throughout the day. So we also have temperature control, traffic flow design, and pest management. These are very important. So we not just manage the plant itself, but also the landscape around the plant. We have a plant in Tianjin, China. However, it has rat problems. We have been working on pest management at that plant. And one day we discovered that the rats are all gone. We are not really quite sure where the rats had all gone to, and it turned out that a cheese factory just opened up near us, and the rats all had moved to the cheese factory. The next trend that affects the food industry is the labor costs that have been increasing over the years. This has affected many of our customers, particularly those who run chain restaurants, those in the hospitality industry. They're counting their costs. For example, 150 to 190 NT dollars per hour. They're spending 100 up to 190 NT per hour to hire workers. So they thought about whether to use the centralized kitchen to, for example, to process the meat food items, for example, to bread the chicken breast, to coat the chicken breast in flour, to name a few. So a lot of our customers are asking us to prepare the chicken, for example, the breading process, etc., so that they do not have to handle the processes themselves. So it is likely that in the future, at the shop front, in the restaurants, they're just completing the last final step to prepare the food to be served to the customer. And the majority of the steps are already carried out in the factory that we run. And we also have been looking into the level of automation that we need. We have been to the dumpling factory in China, which is capable of churning out 1 million dumplings a day. There is not a single worker in the factory. Everything is automated, and they also produce shaomai and dumplings. However, they do not need to hire any workers to work at the production line. Because of the pandemic, because of the political climate, it is harder for Taiwan to export its meat products. However, those in China are aiming to tap into the international markets. Therefore, their plants are extremely and highly automated. Here is a list of the characteristics of the new plant, of our new plant. Number one, we have to ensure that we meet all the regulatory environments. We enable our customers to rest assured that we are a reliable supplier. We have a sound integral food safety control system, consistent quality, stable and reliable supply, and we can collaborate in R&D. On the other hand, the low birth rate has affected the labor market adversely. Consumers who are single are actually spending more money on food. On the other hand, there's also a lack of labor force and the migrant workers here in Taiwan. We economists have predicted that the labor shortage problem will exacerbate around Chinese New Year, which is coming up in a few months. And as the birth rate continues to decrease, we are seeing more and more consumers who are single and who are spending more on food, and there's an increased demand for a home meal replacement. So what we need to do is to look at these different trends and to really strive to optimize our automated food factories in order to strike a balance between automation and food item diversity. So here we have the water jet machine, which literally means that the machine cuts larger pieces of meat into smaller ones using water jets. Like what Professor Chen has already mentioned, AI technologies are already being used to sort and grade mushrooms. And here, the AI sensors are also used to scan each piece of meat, to calibrate and to understand the shape and the size of the meat, and the water jets are deployed to cut larger pieces of meat into smaller ones. So this is highly automated. Here with a deployment of a station like this, it saves labor cost of up to a dozen employees in a day, and employees no longer have to worry about an injured wrist from having to cut a meat all day. And we could see that we are able to process 6,000 chickens in an hour. So it goes really, really fast, and the chickens are really flying across the different stations. So here we have the supply chain management system with bone strippers, water jet machines, rolling and kneading machines, and the automatic packing machines, to name a few. So here we have MES, which lies at the core of all the connection between all the different machines. Some of the MES are transmitting information wirelessly, some used a wired connection. In the past, when we pour materials into the hopper, a person would have to write down the information, 3,000 packets of something, X many kilograms of certain ingredients are poured into the hopper, are fed into the machine at a specific time of the day. It was all written down manually. However, today it's all digitized by using the MES system. And the information is logged automatically, and it can be shared with our customers. Our customers can therefore get a better understanding of what kind of products we're producing and how we are producing the products that they had placed an order for. On the left-hand side, we have the bone strippers, and in the middle, we have the water jet machines. On the right-hand side, we have the rolling and kneading machines. In the post-pandemic era, there will be more challenges. Perhaps next year, we will further connect this forum with more social issues, for example, the birth rate and the gender issues, to have a more interdisciplinary discussion. In the pandemic era, we see there's a shift in consumer behavior. Sometimes when I have a conversation with other business owners, they always ask me how my business is doing. The entire landscape is shifting quickly. I have a friend there's a customer of mine who used to purchase 3 million to 4 million kilograms of chicken each month. But during the pandemic, his business took a huge blow, and he wasn't able to place much of an order. And this other client of mine, his business grew 8 times during the pandemic. So the landscape is shifting very, very swiftly. Now, the only question remains is the change only transient or is it permanent? So this usually has a lot to do with our decision about whether to invest based on whether this change is permanent or not. The other day, I went to visit my mom. My mom is in her 80s, late 80s, early 90s. She loves going to the local day market. So I asked her, so during the pandemic, where do you go to pick up the ingredients? She said, oh, I just bought them online. So my sister managed to teach my mom how to buy these fresh ingredients for fixing her 3 meals a day online. So even an old lady like my mother is able to purchase ingredients online. And also, people are eating out more. It's very hard to make a reservation at any restaurants right now. And the KTV parlors, karaoke parlors are also fully booked. Many people ask, this economic boom, is it permanent, or is it only transient, or is it only temporary, but it will take time to answer these questions. With that, I conclude my presentation today. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you, Vice President Huang from the food business of the Great Wall Group. In recent years, consumers' increasing demand for food safety, health, high quality, and quick and easy food, coupled with the global emphasis on environmental pollution, the problem of marine plastic and food waste has led to the development of new packaging materials and technologies. From the perspective of circular economy, What new directions can the food packaging industry take? In the last presentation today, we have invited Mr. David Christian, the co-founder of EvoWare, to talk about the latest development trends in food packaging.
You here. My name is David Christian. I'm a founder and a CEO of Evo & Co. And before I begin my presentation, I would like to say thank you to Taitra for organizing this event and also for sure for inviting me or having me here to present about our company and about how our company actually can also make a difference. So our company name is Evo & Co. A little bit about Evo & Co. We have a Evo & Co. We are a socially responsible enterprise that have a vision to create a world without plastic pollutions, which is under Evo & Co. itself. We have three different brands: EvoWare, EvoWare, and Rethink Campaigns. And then there is also three core values that we always bring, which is innovation. We always want to bring innovations and also do innovation as well that are sustainable. So process need to be sustainable, and then collaborations as well, because we believe to achieve our vision, a world without plastic pollution, we cannot do it alone. We need to do a lot of collaborations. So before we talk more about also our company and how our company also try to create a world without plastic pollution, I want to talk more first about our Earth, which is our Earth has been around for 4.5 billion years old. Is a very long time, and then human itself only been around for 300 to 500,000 years old. So if we condense those 4.5 billion years old to 24 hours, actually we only been here for about 3 seconds. But during these 3 seconds, during this very short period of time that human been in the Earth, everything that we do can be impacted the Earth. It either is like a good impact or a bad impact. So I have a video that we can watch now, which is that the video is illustrate what's happening in our Earth right now. Yeah. So we can see from this video that the way we do things and the way we create things is really like impacting what's happening in the world right now, right? Like especially like at the end of the video, we see that there is like mountains of garbage that really is become a waste, right? And then like that's actually one of the biggest problems that we are facing right now, like in the world, not only in some countries but for like all around the world, right? Which is we as a human, we are the only creature in this planet that are creating things called waste. And when we look at these conditions, we see the problem is occur because of the linear economy that we have, right? Which is we take the resources that are not renewables, that are sooner or later that we're gonna like drain up for it. For example, fossil fuel, right? So and the way we take the sources like the resources also is actually not sustainable, right? It's destroying the environments. And then we manufacturing, yeah, and then the way we manufacture as well is also impacted the world as well, because we manufacture products that sometimes are not useful, that are people don't really need it, and then the quality is also not really good, and then the way we manufacturing is also destroying the environments because of if the manufacturer don't really care about the impact on the environmental impact, right? And then we as an individual as well, we consume things unresponsibly. So we throw a lot of things that are still can be used or can be recycled, or like we also have a lot of like food waste. So which is we can actually just avoid that if we just eat enough, right? So we need to also the way we consume things that also need to be changed. And at the end of the day, after we consume and then we just throw away, right? Like we dispose it, and then it become waste because it cannot degrade in the environments, and is actually will polluting the environment and also come back to us again as a human, right? Which is in our living system for 4.5 billion years old that Earth has been around, there is no such things actually called waste. Like we as humans are the one that creating the term waste, because in our living systems, been around Earth again, been around for 4.5 billion years old, everything come back again. So when there is like the animals and then plants, and then animal eat the plants, and then there is the predators, and then like when they die, they become like they come back to soil again, they become nutritions from the soils, right? Which is back again is from the plants. So it's all actually circular. So what we need to do, actually we need to mimicking the nature. That's the best way to do it, because Earth again been around for 4.5 billion years old, is very long time, and is working very fine, right? So we just need to mimic the nature, which is we need to make our economy now a circular economy. So we need to take the resources that we have that are renewables, and the way we take it, we need to also care about the environments. And then we need to care, of course, about the people that taking the resources, right? Like for example, for say like farmers. So we need to actually care about the farmers and actually make them like care about their well-being as well. And then we need to create a product that are useful and also have a quality, so people really can use it at the maximum. And then as a consumer as well as individuals, we need to consume responsibly. So so when we consume responsibly, at the end of the day, the products that we are using, for example, if it's like single use, here we talk about single use plastics. it need to be compostable, right? Or need to be biodegradable in nature, not only in industrial composting facility or not only like in the industrial facility, right? But also if it's cannot be composted, it at least need to be recycled or upcycled to be a new resource again to create new products again. So everything need to be circular and come back again, and that's how we can actually create less waste, and then hopefully that way also we can create a world without plastic pollutions. So having that approach, a circular economy approach, we founded EvoWare. That's our first brand back in 2016. EvoWare, we want to create the solutions and provide a solution as well for single-use plastics items that using seaweed as a main materials, because seaweed is very sustainable and also absorb carbon dioxide and releasing oxygen. So in fact that having these materials can also benefit not only to less pollutions, but also to create those carbon neutrals and creating oxygen as well, especially because we are from Indonesia, and Indonesia is one of the largest seaweed producers in the world. So one of the first products that we create the first time back to 2016 is called Elo Jello. So Elo Jello is edible cups. Is made of seaweed and can be eaten and have a different taste. So the idea is actually can be used for parties, for events. So can make the parties and the events is more fun, and then that way we can also educate the peoples in a different way, in more fun way, right? Because the products are unique and different. So that's the first idea to create the Elo Jello cup, is because we want to create a product that can attract people, and then that way we can actually educate people in a different way. Yeah, that. And then the second product that we launched back in 2017, we launched second product 2017. This product actually invented by my friend, and then she been invented this product in 2011, and we launched it back in 2017. It's a seaweed-based packaging to replace a single-use small sachet packaging that usually cannot be recycled. It's also made from seaweed. It's dissolved in the water and it's also edible. So one of the usage, if we're using it as an inner packaging for seasoning, for instant noodle seasoning, or like coffee sachet, we can just put like a hot water and then it will dissolve, and you can just eat the noodles or drink the coffee directly. You don't need to open the sachet, right? You can use it also for wraps or any other flexible packaging, even for non-food products. For example, for soap sachet, you can just put hot water or hot water, and then scrub it. It will dissolve. So, but at the end of the day, if it's like goes to the environments, it will actually, the cups and the packaging, it will be compostable and biodegrade in just under 3 months, right? So that's our first brand, and then it's from 2016 and 2019 we have this brand, and then we also see that there is a demand for like a global demand that happening, that are not only asking for cups or like packaging, but also for another products, right? Therefore, in 2019, we launched our second brand called EvoWare. So put it simply, EvoWare is plastic alternatives that made from seaweed. EvoWare is still a plastic, single-use plastic alternatives, but the raw materials like not made from seaweed. So we have others materials that we provide, as simple as from paper, woodens, bamboo. We have styrofoam box like replacement made from sugarcane. We also have from banana midrib or like areca leaves. We have shopping bags made of cassava, and we the newest one, we also have edible straws is made of rice. So we manufacture our like the products using natural renewable materials. They are fully compostable and biodegradable as well in the nature to achieve our vision award without plastic pollutions, and everything need to be circular again and come back again as a materials there. But also to create a world without plastic pollutions, providing solutions alone, we think is not enough. We need to also educate and raise awareness. And therefore, we create a collaborative campaign. It's called the Rethink Campaign. Is to collaborate between individuals, communities, governments, and even NGOs and companies to rethinking about our habit and then also the way we do things. So in 2019, we created our own campaign. It's called a Rethink Campaign to achieve that. So throughout 2019, we do a lot of activities to raise awareness and to educate people. We do drama musicals, we plant 10,000 trees, we do beach cleanups, we do plogging run. It's like jogging while picking up trash, not only in Indonesia, but also in Malaysia as well. But because of the COVID, then we cannot do in 2020 we cannot really do offline activities anymore, right? So therefore we need to rethinking again about the way we do our campaigns, even the way we do business, the way we manage things in 2020, which is we already be able to adapt. And then also the most difficult part is for sure to do a campaign, because usually it's offline event, but now we need to do it online, but need to be different, right? So we created a programs, more a long-term program for this campaign. One of the program is called Rethink Buds. So what we do, we actually collaborate more with the waste management company. It's called Parongpong, and then we make a drop points for cigarette butts in 60 spots. We make pilot last month in 60 spots in coffee shop or restaurants, so people can collect their cigarette butt waste into this spot, and then we will recycle it into high value products, like for example ashtray or stools, like chair or furniture, and then tiles, and then we can make it toys and other things like that. So the program can be more long-term programs, and then people can still individually, they are like from like corporate as well, they can still do responsibility for their waste, and then they can do the campaign, like they can also collaborate and contribute to the campaign as well, but more into the long terms, and we still be able to also achieve our visions, right? So this is one of the campaign that we do that's like adjusting to the COVID era, and and then also the way we collect the cigarette butt waste is using our organic bags, like the cassava bags or the seaweed bag as well, so that there's not gonna be contaminations, like ferrous contaminations, because before this waste management company, they just collecting using like conventional plastics or boxes, right? Which is they need to separate it again. Then there is the chance to contaminate like with the virus, right? Which is we using our organic bags, so that they don't need to open it or separate it. They can just like put the bags, also the whole things in their machines to actually recycling it. And then also we see problems that we have, I think not only in Indonesia, but also around the world, but this is the campaign that we do in Indonesia, that most of the solutions or even like government regulations is very difficult to tap into middle lower like marginal people, or like middle lower income businesses, right? Like very micro businesses. So therefore we create our own program as well to actually solve that issue. It's called Sustainable Food Stall. So what we do is very similar to carbon offsetting, but this is more into like a plastic offsetting. So so people individually or like corporation, they can offset their plastics usage into our sustainable food stall. So what we will do is we will subsidize. First, we will start with straw. We will subsidize our eco-friendly straws from rice, so that like the price can be cheaper than plastics, or at least like same price with plastics. And then we will give it to the food stall, to the very small food stall here in Indonesia. And then not only that, not only subsidizing, but we will also educate the food stall owner. So we will educate the food stall owner to change their habit to not give out straw if the customer don't ask about it. So we already like reducing it in the first place. But if the customer asking about straw, they can give like the eco-friendly straw. And then we will also educate the warung's owner about the dangers of plastics, and we will educate them at least like one food stall. We will do educations and subsidize for 6 months to 1 year, and then we will teach them how to separate their waste, and then how they can also recycle, how they can also compost their food waste, or they can separate and recycle their plastic waste, that they can get even like more income by doing that, right? Because they can sell it again. So our goal in 1 year is actually to replace 1 million straws, 1 million plastic straws from middle, lower, micro, small food stall, and then helping 5,000 small food stall to become sustainable food stalls. So we basically cannot solve problems by using the same kind of thinking we use when we created them. So we need to always like rethinking about it, and then also come up with the new innovative solutions, not only from the products perspective, but as well as from the business perspectives as well. So thank you so much. Hope is inspired and useful.
Thank you very much to Mr. Christian. 谢谢来自于 Evoware 他们从
I would like to thank Mr. Christian from Evoware. He talked about how the packaging industry can transform from the perspective of circular economy. He also talked about the many meaningful campaigns they have launched to promote the idea of circular economy. We will now proceed to the panel discussion. If you have any questions for our panelists, please submit your questions using the Slido software. I would like to also ask you to take a minute to fill out the questionnaire to help us improve our future events. Now, I would like to invite the 3 panelists to go on stage to join the panel discussion. Please help me welcome Professor Hung-Hao Chang from the National Taiwan University. He will be the moderator for the panel discussion. We will also like to welcome Mr. Chin-Keng Huang, the Vice President of the Food Business Department, Great Wall Group. Finally, we would like to welcome General Manager Cho from the K.K.ORCHARD. Now I would like to turn the program over to the moderator, Professor Chang of National Taiwan University. Ladies and gentlemen, as the moderator of the panel discussion, I would like to welcome you all to today's discussion. We have had the honor to listen to many interesting presentations this afternoon. We have been able to shed more light on some of the most pressing issues and most topical and the hottest topics in the food production industry. I have prepared a list of questions for the panelists today. First, during the pandemic, many people's lives have transitioned from offline to online. When we are using an increasing number of different technologies, especially when we try to incorporate the use of technologies in the agricultural and the food production industry. What are the challenges have the two of you encountered when developing your business, and how did you overcome those challenges? Now, maybe we'll ask Mr. Huang to answer first. I just introduced our EMS-enabled and fully digitized food factory to replace the need of manpower, to speed up the manufacturing process, and also to transmit real-time data back to the control center. I also mentioned that we also work with farmers and other partners. In the process, we have encountered challenges, just like what Mr. Chiu had mentioned. Some of our partners are pig farmers. Whenever they place an orders, they would call us, and they've been doing that for many, many years. Or they would come down to our office to sign a contract, to place an order. We might have a drink. We might bond with that conversation. But now, many orders are being placed by using the app on your cell phones or by sending us a text message. So it was quite challenging for us to convince our existing customers to switch to the digitized platform. The technology is available and it's quite mature. However, what remains challenging is to convince our customers to adopt and actually start using these technologies. General Manager Chiu from K.K.ORCHARD, would you like to respond? The challenge may also lead to opportunities. Sometimes when we work on a challenge, we have expectations that it may open more doors, more windows, and lead to a cascade of opportunities. As the Chinese saying goes, that no pain, no gain. We believe that just like what Mr. Wang had mentioned, that you could have the most cutting-edge factory, however, you will still need the right people to manage it. So when that happens, when you need to make the decision, you will need to select young employees from the old factories and move them to the new factories. The new factories are a positive pressure PLC-enabled factory. So what can we offer to the new younger employees and give them a new contract so that they are willing to move to start a new career at the new factory? So because the new factory is systemized and it's highly digitized, so when you lose a very capable and skilled employee, there could be a gap in the connection between the old and the new. So sometimes when we try to install a new equipment, the foreign engineers or technicians may come to Taiwan to teach us how to use the machine. However, you would still need to train the local employees to learn these instructions from the engineer, because they are the people who would have to operate these machines on a day-to-day basis at the production line. So it could be challenging to digitize. However, relatively speaking, it is easier to standardize. So after communicating with the farmers, we give them a list of the standards. The standards are based on a mutual consensus. They are the results of our discussion with the farmers. So we will then discuss and come up with these standards and ask the farmers to adhere to them. So when our partners go to the different fields and farms to monitor the growth of our contracted plants, they would apply these standards to all the farms. Sometimes you have a set of standards, but they're not enforced, or there's a general lack of understanding of these standards. Therefore, by working with the Council of Agriculture and the agricultural experimentation stations, we have learned a lot from these counselors from the Council of Agriculture. They have taught us how to strike a balance, how to work with the local farmers, and how to keep an open mind, how to keep the flow of information clear and transparent.
Thank you, K.K.ORCHARD. We now know it's really not easy being the boss, running a company. So based on your experience with agricultural technology, I'm sure you understand that communication is often the biggest obstacle. So thank you for that answer that reinforces the importance of communication. Another question is for Great Wall and K.K.ORCHARD, you have very unique business models. Is it a very local business model that you're following, or did you make reference to some international examples? Mr. Huang? In the last 2 years, due to the pandemic, we were not able to go abroad and learn from other examples. However, I mentioned setting up a big plant in Jiayi. That part we definitely learned from international experience. In the early days in Taiwan, when we were establishing factories, our main goal was to bring the costs down. So success was determined by how much money you were able to save. This is how Taiwanese businesses made money. However, gradually, as there were more and more regulations, people had to make sure that what they were doing met with regulatory standards. During that period, many factory owners just wanted to meet the basic minimum requirement. However, in recent years, we've seen many entrepreneurs are concerned with SDG. They're concerned with carbon neutrality. So you will see that their recycling of water resources is very thorough. It goes above and beyond what the regulations stipulate. So you can see that green energy is a foremost concern. They use green energy to regulate temperature. So I think the popularity of ESG has definitely impacted companies in Taiwan. We are beginning to learn from overseas experiences. We know that we need to look far ahead into the future. And Mr. Cho, what's your response? I think we should have learned from Great Wall's experience in setting up a factory in Jiayi. When we looked at our factory, we went to Japan, we went to Europe, and observed what they were doing. And when we were there, we noticed that they had a very clear workflow, and we tried to learn from that. But in Taiwan, we like to integrate, which means we like to make the most of different experiences. We like to take the quality first mindset of the Japanese. We like to take the efficiency of the Europeans, and we like to integrate that. And we also ran into problems, which is who is the true expert in building a frozen food factory. In Taiwan, there are actually very few experts. We had to rely on overseas experts. So in Taiwan, very often people learn through trial and error. Luckily, before the pandemic hit, we were able to go abroad and visit certain world-class facilities. Of course, it's not going to be a perfect scenario. You need to learn and adjust at the same time. We also heard about the impact of food safety. So we can see for every procurer, they want to know very clearly what are the standards you follow in your facility. So it's very important that your specs are international before international collaborators will work with you. In the past, it was always price first. However, now in the age of food safety, much has changed. We know that K.K.ORCHARD utilizes drones to serve for surveillance. We know that drones also started from abroad. Can you talk a little bit about your use of drones? I think the use of drones is a wonderful dream. I mentioned everything starts with the seed of a dream. So we started using drones first, not because we wanted to have better surveillance, but because we wanted to play with a drone. Of course, it also helped us with the problem of distance. Because you have a drone, you don't need to walk a very long distance to make sure everything is fine. So originally, we only used the drone for fun, and we still relied on manpower to do the monitoring work. But it was gradual when we realized if drones were able to record and we could download the data and utilize the data, wouldn't it be more efficient if the drones served as a monitoring tool? So this is a gradual evolution where we uploaded a lot of the information we captured on the drone, and then there would be a person who then deciphered the data. Also, we realized that you cannot rely on manpower alone because it's not going to be the same supervisor looking at the fields every day. There is a problem of human error. So therefore, we needed to have a system where we could make sure that quality was ensured. So this is why we started to rely on drones. Of course, it's very important to foster collaboration. So through the drone platform, we were able to collect information about how you're using pesticides, what did you notice when you went on, when you were monitoring the different fields, to put that information online. Today, farmers no longer carry pesticide cans on their back. This is all being outsourced to professionals. So as a farmer, we need to then focus on data management. I mentioned in my presentation that very often foreign technology that's imported into Taiwan can bring us added value. In other words, we can have a 2.1 version of a technology. Taiwan is very strong in geographic imaging, and we can take this kind of application and put it on our drones. Our drones are very state-of-the-art, so we can actually achieve a lot more than the drones overseas. Another question I'd like to ask, this is more serious. We know that with the pandemic, people are more and more aware of the importance of international trade. And when we talk about international trade, we need to have our own competitive advantage in order to win. So I wonder if the two of you can tell us, what do you think are the strengths of Taiwan's agriculture? Where are we most competitive? Where should we focus our efforts? Maybe we can first hear from Great Wall Group. I think exporting food is something that we talk about a lot in our group. And one of the questions, or one of the problems we often encounter is many countries regulate the importation of meat, especially because of different pandemics. People are worried about avian flu, as well as other kinds of infectious diseases. Also, there are other concerns that have to do with international relations, politics. So we haven't really been able to export meat. We tend to produce in Southeast Asia and China. Probably in the future, we're also looking to produce in the United States, and then we're usually going to sell in that same market. However, if we're talking about vegetarian meat or other plant food or sea kelp, that will allow us to sell all over the world. For example, in Indonesia, we have seafood that we are able to export. We can see that in Taiwan, since the foot and mouth disease, our costs have skyrocketed. And we cannot compare with other countries in the region. So if it's possible in the future for countries like Japan and Singapore to accept our processed meat products, then I think this is an area we have a competitive advantage. Of course, when you look at meat food, you need to also look at the uniqueness of the product itself. What about K.K.ORCHARD? What do you think? What are our strengths? I think when you're talking about exports, there are many problems to tackle. On the one side, there is the issue of agricultural technology. In Taiwan, we are very, very good at incubation of saplings. I think you can ask experts in the field, and they will tell you countries like the Philippines, they learn and they get seedlings from Taiwan to grow their bananas. So this is one strength. And for Great Wall Group, we are able to also export the relevant technology. But for SMEs, right now, we can only export products. It's very difficult for us to set up a facility overseas. So I think for SMEs, you can only think about exporting products. And as was mentioned before, when it comes to food products, you need to have some unique characteristics. Are you cheaper than Southeast Asia? Do you have higher quality than Japan? What is your advantage? So we need to couple service together with our products. In the past, the cheaper, the better, so you could sell cheap products, be it sweet potato or other products. Now you need to look at shelf life and other benefits, and you need to combine that when you market your product. By so doing, your partners in Japan, they don't need to worry about still solving other problems. You give them a total solution. Also, I think differentiation is an issue. In Japan, their consumer behavior when it comes to sweet potato is different from Southeast Asia. In Southeast Asia, they like very sweet potato. They like sweet potato fried. Whereas in Japan, they like it ice cold. So with different cultural preferences, even though the production is pretty much the same, but your sales channel will change. And post-pandemic, we can see that the supply chain has been disrupted. So for us, that could mean an opportunity. I just saw a news article yesterday that mentioned that French fries, chips were in short supply in McDonald's in Japan. That could be our opportunity. So in Taiwan, there are certain products that we have an advantage in. So regionally, I think we can make the most of that. So sometimes crisis can also be considered an opportunity when it comes to Taiwan. I think when it comes to Great Wall Group, you know that they have managed to sell their own French fries to Europe and actually made a profit. This is indeed unheard of. So they've maximized supply. They've provided products that have very high added value. So I think Vice President Cho is very humble. What you've managed to achieve at K.K.ORCHARD is incredible.
Now I would like to move on to the next question. Many audience members had wanted to raise this question. Many people believe that we are entering the post-pandemic era and we are seeing the rise of e-commerce. So from a company owner's perspective and looking at the different future trends, how has the pandemic and the effects of a pandemic affect your take on the future, especially for agriculture and food production businesses like yours? For the food production companies in Taiwan, they work with a great number of small farmers. Compared to Thailand, Thailand's businesses are more centralized, and China's businesses are very centralized as well. In Taiwan, because of the government's policy to protect the rights and the livelihood of smaller farmers, we have more smaller farmers here. And during the pandemic, we have seen a drastic rise of the stay-at-home economy. And with that, a lot of new business opportunities have emerged. In the past, to buy our company's products, you have to go to the supermarket. But now many people are ordering our products directly online through e-commerce. So this has created a thriving business. And in the past, many small and medium-sized companies try to increase their market share by lowering their product prices. However, this solution will no longer be viable in the future. In fact, a famous Hong Kongese movie star, Mr. Huang Qiu once said that there is really no gourmet food in Taiwan because Taiwanese people prefer cheap and affordable food. Sometimes I see long lines in front of the local restaurants in my neighborhood. They are either having a great sale or they're offering like a time-limited special discounts. So we need to see that in the future, people are moving away from low-price products. They're looking for more value for money. They are attaching more importance to product quality. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Huang. What about Mr. Cho? What do you think? I think this could be quite polarized, or you could look at it from two perspectives. Large corporations, because of their large size, might have a different approach. However, small and medium-sized enterprises are more flexible and can move a lot more quickly. However, most of them are still looking to scale up, looking for more customers, looking to consolidate and connect resources. A large customer may not always be here to stay. We have customers that just shut down their operations immediately during the operation. They simply went under. Therefore, we have learned not to prepare a huge inventory for one specific individual customer. So we prepare our inventory, prepare our products based on the actual demand, the actual orders placed, and things can move very, very quickly. So the manufacturers could suffer from an excessive inventory. If the inventory is not moving, then it increases our operation costs. So we do want to avoid that. And during the pandemic, the more assets you have in your hands, the more costs are incurred. So in the past, you will see that people keep investing in built capitals. However, here people are more focused on quote unquote light festivals. For example, we can share the drones. I have a farming machine. You want to use it, you can just borrow it from me. And I have a piece of equipment, and my peak season happens to be your low season, and vice versa. So you can rent it from me, or I can rent your agricultural machinery from you. And we could all form this sort of partnerships. We can connect resources, and smaller players could connect their forces, join their forces to become more powerful. Therefore, we K.K.ORCHARD act as a headquarters for Change franchise. We need to take care of our distribution channels. However, we need to take good care of the farmers who we work with. Our competitiveness at the end of the day comes from taking good care of the farmers, making sure that their rights are protected. We need to get the information from the customers as quickly as possible, which is then communicated to the farmers. And this is all done based on mutual trust and respect. In the past, people eat sweet potatoes just to be full. People eat it as a staple food. However, in the past 10 years, people are becoming more aware of the health benefits of sweet potatoes. In the past, now that people think about what kind of specialty coffee goes best with sweet potatoes, what kind of sides can we create with sweet potatoes so that it would go well with a nice piece of steak. And so we are looking at different connections that are being made, cross-domain, cross-industry collaboration. This is the next step, and there's no turning back. I agree with you. My views are very similar to those of the two of you. The pandemic has brought about drastic changes. For food production companies, it has brought about challenges as well as opportunities. And in this context, many food production companies are maintaining an open mind. They are switching to e-commerce, switching to attracting different customer segmentations. Now the e-commerce is another channel for you to sell. For example, you could sell your products at Momo, which is the traditional large e-commerce platform, or you can have your own website. So this really all opens up another door for you to sell directly to the customers. In the past, customers are not really purchasing these fresh agricultural produce online as frequently as they do today. But the pandemic has changed the name of the game. Therefore, as you could see, a successful entrepreneur of today not just has this necessary business skills, the person would also have to be have to have a great understanding of the big data, how the ways to form strategic alliances with potential partners, and it has been observed in the agriculture sector that when it comes to forming alliances, people want to take the lead, and people are less interested in being a follower. So we still need to work that out so that the more alliances can be formed to connect resources. Next question will have to do with the future trends. So I would like to ask the two gentlemen, please share with us your views on the following issues. During the pandemic, what specific products or technologies do you think might be the rising star that might move center stage after the pandemic is over? For example, I believe thick data is gaining more traction in many industries. What about the two panelists? What do you think? What is going to be more important in the future, but it's yet to garner attention today? The questions are getting more and more difficult. If the issues are not really getting much attention, maybe I have not noticed them yet. However, our company works with many local farmers. They're not just vegetable farmers or tree farmers. We also work with chicken and pig farmers. Over the past couple of decades, we have grown this very strong bond, aid, and partnership with our suppliers. The rise of e-commerce has enabled smallholders to create their own brand and to communicate directly with the end users. In the past, in order to build a brand for your pork product, what do? How do you reach out to PixMart, to RT Mart, to Costco? Because you're not large enough in terms of your size, in terms of the scale of your business. It's very hard for you to convince them. However, now, if with the rise of e-commerce, you have your own platform for communication, you have your own sales channels, direct sales channels. So the situation is quite different today. Another example would be the distribution of eggs. Sometimes our egg suppliers would deliver, for example, 800 eggs per day, and then they would release the news on the platform so that people could place orders ahead of time. And this is done by providing the customers with the product traceabilities, who the chicken farm owner is, what are the chicken, what kind of animal feed is offered to the chicken, and when are the eggs harvested. And on January 1st, the eggs are washed. On January 2nd, the eggs are delivered. So all you need to do is have a platform to offer the sort of information. And free-range chicken is the same, is the same as well. So you could say that now this is the growth period of the chickens. Now you can see the chickens roaming the farm, and when the chickens, you could also use the traceability system to know when the chickens were slaughtered, and you could even look up who the chicken farmer is, and actually be able to see a photo of the chicken farmer, and so that to build that sense of trust. So this has really changed the consumer's perception. Okay, thank you so much for sharing your experience with us. Next, maybe Mr. Chiu from K.K.ORCHARD. Would you like to respond? Sure. During the pandemic, people have made a lot of speculations. There are so much uncertainty that we face today. We see a lot of risks. We need to identify opportunities from these risks. When we face uncertainties, from a small and medium-sized enterprises perspective, we could be a little bit more conservative. This is to boil down to only rely or focus on the essential factors. Sometimes when you want to do everything, then you end up achieving nothing. So if today, if you set a deadline and you ask yourself, now with the limited time and resources, how do we consolidate our resources and focus on the most important aspects of the business? During the pandemic, it is very important to know what is the core driving force of your business, and you need to focus everything on that. And I think this is a very clear logic to follow. And another aspect is to push our partners to grow with us. When a group of partners are all doing a great job, people stop focusing on a specific company. They start giving more attention to the entire industry. In Jiayi University last year, we had our annual conference, which was not really just focused on our company itself. We invited all our customers and our suppliers to join us. We were able to troubleshoot and exchange ideas on how to share farming machines, how to develop farming tools and machines, how to better help each other improve each other's farming practice. So everybody was sharing their strength, experience, and expertise and through this specific platform. So I think that's the second point that's very important for us to pay attention to. Number 3 is to identify opportunities, but we need to have we need to know where we stand. We need to know our own strengths and weaknesses and limitations. Because as a medium-sized enterprises, we need to connect resources and work with partners instead of work individually. Let me give you an example. Now, the Japanese fish cakes used to be a hot selling items in convenience stores. However, today people are switching to buying steamed or baked potatoes whenever they go to convenience store. This was made possible because of the concerted efforts made between us and our partners.
Thank you. I think one of the key success factors for K.K.ORCHARD is they're very good at collaboration. However, we can see that very often when you work with contracted farmers, there are problems of how to draw up the contract and also how do you manage different players and how do you profit share. That's not easy. So thank you for sharing that with us. As the host, I want to ask another question. It's a question that's on my mind. We can see that K.K.ORCHARD has been very good at customizing. And I have a question that I'd like to ask. How do you decide how much customizing to do? Say you have 1,000 orders. If everybody is asking for customization, that's going to result in very, very high cost. So what are the guiding principles when it comes to customization? I think this is really hard to answer because I don't think we've done that well in this area of customizing. Even though people talk about an 80-20 principle, which we know means that 80% of your revenue comes from 20% of your customers. So you want to make sure that you focus on those 20%. However, there are also customers that are not asking for customization. They just want a steady supply of sweet potatoes. Then I will continue to do that. So if you want customization, then of course you need to be one of our big customers. So it's quite selective who we customize for. Usually, customers that want differentiation are more sophisticated players in the market. So we will try and cater to those big players. For example, what are the unique features you hope to have in our sweet potato products? We will try and factor that in and customize it. So this is also why it takes quite a long time before a product can be on the shelf. Thank you for sharing those secrets with us. We have some online listeners who have raised some good questions. The first question, even though Taiwan does not have Bill Gates, but we have encountered many food safety scandals, and this has helped us become more competitive. So he would like to ask, under the ESG values. Do you have any suggestion how traditional food companies can start to change and embrace the new reality? So how do traditional farmers try and change? I think ESG has already become de facto. For a while, people just thought of it as a buzzword, but now it's really a part of our culture. One of the reasons for this is because government regulations is focusing on this, and also international companies such as Nike and Adidas and McDonald's, they are emphasizing this. So as a result, KK Orchard needs to be able to deliver what they want if they want to do business together. Also, we know there's a timeline. By 2030, 2040, e-vehicles need to be on the road. There's a certain percentage of that. So the capital markets dictate that. If you look at the stock market and bond market, you can see that people are already speculating on ESG-related companies. So this makes companies very nervous because if you are not falling in line, you will not be able to raise the funds that you need. As for the little farmer in the field, I really don't know how to persuade them. But I think it will definitely be the big brands that will embrace ESG and green energy first, and then in the stock market, the investors, they are going to only invest in companies that focus on ESG. So I think this means increased cost. If we look at eggs as an example, you can have eggs where chickens are raised in more humane conditions. However, for each egg that you purchase, you need to be willing to pay 15 NT dollars, whereas the regular egg in the market costs 5 NT. So if your egg is 15 NT, and this means a very, very high price that consumers must be willing to shoulder. So it has to do with government regulations, and you have to test these prices on the market. But when it comes to small farmers or traditional farmers, I'm not sure how they can begin to change because I don't know if they care so much right now about carbon footprint. Maybe Mr. Cho can share with us his experience. Yes, we can hear from Mr. Cho, but we know KK Orchard is not a small farmer. I think very often problems are left by the previous generation, and this generation needs to solve these legacy problems. So I totally agree with what was said. A lot of the pressure comes from the customer. So if consumers want to see greener products, then customers will also ask us to provide greener products. The reason we started with our carbon footprint initiative was because Family Mart wanted it. However, after a few years of running this initiative, it didn't really mean an increase in profitability. So it was more of a short-term initiative. Agriculture is already something that is related to nature. So we are constantly solving the problem of carbon footprint. So all we need to do is focus on what we're doing to do it more efficiently, to provide evidence and data, to have it ready. And if you have this data and other people don't have the data, then you will probably get the order. So all of this comes down to cost. So for us, we know that carbon is invisible, it's very hard to calculate, but we can calculate waste. We can reduce waste. For example, for me to transport certain things from great distances, that's waste. Or if we're transporting fruits and vegetables to the market, but a lot of it goes to waste because it's not sold. If you can tackle this kind of wastage at the origin, that could be much more profitable than to pay attention to these international invisible trends. I think it will be a while before those initiatives trickle down to SMEs. But talking about eliminating waste, that's something we can all stand behind. Of course, if you're going to talk about ESG, it's not just about reducing carbon footprint. For SMEs, you need to be more active in your community. You need to have, you need to play a role in the arts and culture scene. So companies can actually do a lot, and they should be doing these things. So every day, I would suggest that we first control our own wastage. That already gives us a more positive image. We want to thank our two panelists for sharing so much with us. As an economist and an agricultural economist, this is how I see this issue. If you are expecting companies to reach ESG goals from the perspective of the economist, society needs to absorb a lot of the social costs. For example, for carbon dioxide emissions, if you're asking farmers to follow ESG principles, you really need to have more people on board. And when it comes to social cost, you really cannot overlook the role of the consumer. The consumer needs to understand that companies, in order to embrace ESG, they have to take on more cost. And they're willing as consumers to pay more for products. I think that is the best way forward. Otherwise, companies such as Great Wall and K.K.ORCHARD, they are actively promoting ESG, coming up with greener products. But customers aren't really differentiating between the older products and not really buying these greener products. That is very disheartening for companies, and they may lose heart. So I'd like to urge our consumers, if you know that there is a company that's willing to take money out of their pocket to embrace ESG, this is your encouragement is by buying more of their products. And also, Mr. Chiu talked about the importance of wastage. In the last few years at APEC, we've been talking about not just food wastage, but also water waste. We can see that for consumers, they know the importance of not wasting food. And on the production side, it's also important for farmers to look at ways in which they can cut down on waste. Recently, people have been talking about energy conservation. This has everything to do with eliminating waste of different resources. So I hope our online participants are happy with our panelists' answers. Another question here, it is a bigger question, and I think quite interesting. The question is, for a long time, when it comes to agriculture and the food industry, people don't see it as being very fashionable or very ahead of the curve. However, if you want consumers to be interested in your industry, you really need to rebrand your image. So can our two panelists talk about how we can flip the image of the food industry or of farmers? Can we give this industry a newer image, a more fashionable, fashion-forward image? When I heard about this, when I heard this question, my feeling was it's actually a good thing that we're not fashion-forward. We don't need to flip tradition. Tradition can be a good thing, but I can cite one example here for you to consider. My kids, my daughter and my son, when they go out and enjoy pasta in a very mom and pop restaurant, they're willing to spend 180 NT and they think it's very good value. But then when they eat some local snack, for the same price, they think it's too expensive. We know that the cost is actually about the same, but why do we think spaghetti bolognese with very little bolognese is very reasonable, but a traditional snack, pork chop rice, we consider very expensive for the same price? This has to be traced back not to whether something is fashionable or not, but rather to marketing.
It depends on how you use new marketing methods to add value to the product. When people do not associate this product with a valuable, sought-after hot item, they are not willing to pay a higher price to purchase it. And vice versa, for something that is not perceived to be very valuable or fashionable, it can only be offered at a much lower price point. In the post-pandemic era, people often ask, how should we proceed with agricultural produce marketing? We can use the placement, pre-placement of orders, and also we can use new marketing methods to enhance the image of agricultural produce in the consumer's minds. So you have to innovate. So people are always looking for new products. For example, minced pork on rice is such a ubiquitous street snack. However, if you can add variations to it, if you can innovate it, maybe you'll be able to sell it at a higher price point. Mr. Chiu? Maybe I will talk about the issue from two perspectives. Number one, sugar-glazed potatoes and baked potatoes are considered to be quite traditional food. However, deep-fried potato fries are considered to be a more modern invention. Now, tea is yet another example. When you create a purple potato foams and place it on top of a milk tea, a cup of milk tea, people think it's very fashionable. And you create tapioca balls or potato pearls to add to a sweet drink to make it into a very fashionable dessert. So we were adding sweet potato powder to flavor popcorn, to add to other food items, to be as creative as we can. So this is one of the ways that we are doing to increase the value of our products. So we are using sweet potatoes in beverages, in Western meals to create and reinvent traditional meals. So people's jaws would drop when they see, wow, we never thought that sweet potatoes can be added to this dish. And then that's how we catch their attention. So I do not view myself as being an owner of a traditional company. We are always seeking to reinvent the brand, to recreate our image in people's mind. Image, once it's fixed, can be very hard to change. So you will have to make new connections so that the consumers, whenever they see your products, they are associating it with new images. For example, young farmers, they're able to raise their family, to have a stable, viable livelihood by farming sweet potatoes. So that would flip the image of the sweet potato farming industry. Another example is the Haagen-Dazs ice cream. But when you take a step back, you will see that it's just a brand of higher quality ice cream. However, its marketing has been quite successful that people are willing to pay a premium price for Haagen-Dazs ice cream. Thank you. My thoughts exactly when we talk about smart marketing, we know that it's quite a buzzword. For example, educating the consumers, giving consumer the opportunities to make an educated, informed choice about the food they purchase. That's the trend today. About 30, 40 years ago, when companies need to advertise a product, they need to hire movie stars or celebrities. However, today's advertisements are more informative with the aim to educate the consumers, to change the consumer's perception, and to believe the products come with much more added value. So a lot of food companies are doing that. And there are also internet celebrities that in fact work with or in the agriculture sector. They are more and more common today. I know that the panelists and I are from an older generation. We may not be familiar with these internet celebrities, but they're out there and they are really changing people's perception. We have a few minutes left, and we are near the end of today's panel discussion. Before we wrap things up, maybe I would ask each panelist to offer his concluding thoughts. Maybe each one of you will maybe offer a 1-minute conclusion to conclude today's panel discussion. Thank you. In today's Food Taipei Show International Forum, we have covered a wide range of topics. We have talked about the importance of moving away from the price war to exit the red ocean to enter the blue ocean. I believe most people are in the business world to make profits. However, it's easier said than done. So we need to innovate. And many companies were able to differentiate themselves. For example, the K.K.ORCHARD has able to differentiate itself from its competitors through innovation. And my company is no exception. We're always seeking to develop new products, new concepts. We are working with different industries, working with different, seeking new more innovative endorsements. So we have continued to innovate so that we can rise above our competitors, add more value to our products. Like we said, a bowl of traditional ground pork on rice is usually associated with a traditional food. It's not fashionable, and it can only be sold at a much lower price point. However, through innovative and suitable marketing, we can make a difference. In order to innovate, when we first started building our new factory, we were not able to find a world-class suppliers who could supply the machines that we need. So we had to go to China. We, in fact, had already had plants in China. And plants in China, they have the most cutting-edge machineries in their plants. They are more advanced. So I often send my employees to China to learn from the factories in China. I would like to concur with what Mr. Huang had already said. manufacturers and business owners in China can sometimes really blow your mind. They have blue burger patties, blue sauce to go on top of the blue burger. In Taiwan, may seem to be a very open and democratic society. However, the consumers' behavior can be quite conservative. The people want new products, but they want natural ingredients. They want safe, natural ingredients, products. They don't want any food scares. They want the product nonetheless to be fashionable, but they don't want any additives or any artificial ingredients. So it can be challenging to meet all these consumer demands here in Taiwan. For example, the tricolor fries that became a great hit in Europe. We were just using the natural ingredients, and then it became a great hit in Europe. And if you look at all the luxury brands around the world, their best-selling items are the classic accessories. There are the classic items. So I think it's the same with food. Food is so closely associated with the region's culture. So let's set Taiwan aside. Let's look at the Asian region in the next 2 years. Maybe take Japan as an example. Japan is at a temperate climate zone. They prefer cold sweet potatoes. However, is this consumer preference going to change? So we're following the Instagram accounts and Facebook trends of the internet celebrities in Japan in order to follow the next trends of the young generations. So we see what's popular in the market to see if there are new opportunities for us to market new products to the younger generations in Japan to expand our distribution channel. And there are also less explicit observations. For example, when we think of sweet potatoes, people over 60 years old think of it as the food for the poor. And people from the middle age group think of it as a snack food. However, people from the much younger generations would associate with desserts that they could sometimes find in a sweet potato pie served in a cafe. And for the even younger children, when they think of sweet potatoes, they think of fries, potato fries. We often organize activities to take kids to go to the farm. They will harvest the potatoes, ground them into powder, turn them into cakes. So I think education is a rather conventional approach, but it can be most innovative because it's sowing that seed in the kid's mind. Today's children no longer associate sweet potato with tradition. They view it as a quite fashionable food item. Thank you. Thank you for sharing your thoughts with us. To sum up, I would like to offer my 2 cents. The innovation in the agriculture sector requires the concerted efforts of all. We need interdisciplinary talents joining the workforce, and we also need more injection of funds, financial resources for innovation and further development. With that, we conclude the panel discussion today. Let's have another warm round of applause for our 2 panelists, Mr. Huang and Mr. Chiu. Thank you. And we would also like to thank the moderator, Professor Chang from the National Taiwan University. Now we would like to invite the moderator and the panelists to join us for a group photo shooting. Ladies and gentlemen, with that, we conclude the 2021 Food Taipei International Forum on Innovative Trends in the Food Industry. All the PowerPoint slides used during today's forum will be made available on the International Forum's official website. Please, if you need to download the PowerPoint.